On a Christmas evening wrapped in soft lights and the scent of evergreen and spice, I discovered how sharp love can cut. I'm called Elias Carter, and the person who taught me that truth was my wife, Mira. We had shared 7 years of marriage. To everyone else, we were the couple people pointed to with envy, the loud laughers, the ones who held hands beneath decorations and danced in the kitchen. That night, our home was crowded with relatives, glasses chimed, and music floated through the rooms. I believed it would become another warm memory. I was mistaken. For weeks before, Mira had felt miles away. Her phone never left her hand, and work suddenly demanded late hours. I convinced myself it was seasonal pressure. When she smiled and said everything was okay, I chose to trust her and pushed aside the unease curling in my stomach. I focused on being the perfect host. After dinner, as sweets were passed around and conversation softened, Mira rose from her seat and tapped her glass. She announced she had a holiday surprise. Smiles spread across the room, expecting a toast. Instead, she fixed her gaze on me, her expression icy, and said that Christmas was about telling the truth. Then she laughed and began mocking our marriage, calling it dull, saying I no longer sparked anything in her, joking that she felt caged beside a man who couldn't make her feel alive. The room froze. My cheeks burned as she turned our private pain into public entertainment. She even hinted that someone from her office made her feel things I never could, delivering it like a clever punchline. Surrounded by people who cared about me, I felt utterly alone. My hands trembled, but I stayed silent. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. I stared at the floor and swallowed the shame. She finished, sat down proudly, and a few awkward laughs followed. Most people avoided my eyes. I quietly stood, took my coat, and left without a word. The cold night air struck my face, sharp and sobering. I sat in my car, replaying every sentence. Part of me wanted to confront her. Another part felt strangely calm, as if something inside me had finally snapped free. I drove to an empty lot and stayed there until dawn, thinking about every warning sign I had ignored. When the sky began to pale, I returned home. The house was silent. Mira lay asleep on the couch, makeup smeared, an empty glass nearby. For a second, the old ache surfaced. Then I remembered her laughter. I didn't wake her. I opened her laptop. She'd never bothered to secure it properly. What I found answered every question. Messages, photos, plans, all with a coworker. They joked about me, about how predictable and safe I was. My hands shook, but my thoughts were steady. I documented everything and closed the computer. I wrote a brief note saying I knew the truth, that I was finished, and that I deserved more than being someone's joke. I left my wedding ring on top. Before walking out, I sent a message to our family group chat. I didn't insult her. I simply said the marriage was over because Mira had been unfaithful and that I had proof if anyone questioned it. Then I muted the chat and left. By sunrise, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls. Messages. The story she'd tried to turn into humor was no longer something she could laugh away. Later, I learned that when she woke and saw the ring and note, panic set in. She called me repeatedly. When I didn't answer, she saw messages from family asking how long it had been happening and how she could be so heartless. The man from her office stopped responding as well. Suddenly, she was alone with the consequences of her choices. She tried to come to my brother's place, where I was staying, but I asked him not to let her in. I wasn't ready for tears or excuses. I had heard enough. That Christmas morning, while she dealt with the fallout, I sat quietly with a cup of coffee, feeling something unfamiliar. Not joy yet, just peace. The calm that comes when you stop lying to yourself. In the days that followed, the truth spread. Friends who once admired us began to look at her differently. Invitations faded. Support turned into silence. She had wanted attention that night, just not this kind. The cost wasn't only losing me, it was losing the image she had so carefully maintained. I started over. I moved into a small apartment and filled it with simple things: books, plants, quiet evenings. Whenever I thought back to that night, I reminded myself that walking away had been my greatest act of strength. Mira sent long messages about regret and second chances. I never replied, not out of anger, but because I finally chose self-respect. Christmas will always remind me of what I lost, but also of what I gained. My dignity, my freedom, and the courage to choose a life where I am not the punchline. Healing will take time, but each step forward feels like reclaiming a part of myself. I learned that silence can be more powerful than any argument, and that sometimes leaving is the only way to move toward a better future.